Our lives are a string of insights, flashes of inspiration that can be the catalyst for new ideas. However, our pace of life these days means we tend to miss some of them completely. I'm Dave Hill, and I'm the host of the Simple Reflections podcast, a fortnightly series of interviews with people from all walks of life. Our conversations are an invitation to reflect on some of the simple insights my guests have had that have gone on to have a profound impact on their lives. So grab a cuppa and a biscuit, join us, slow down for a little while and see what shows up for you. Welcome to the next episode of the Simple Reflections podcast. I'm joined today by Barb Patterson, who I've got to know over the last few years through a number of events that she's put on, both in person and virtually, through crossing paths at the Three Principles UK conference on a number of occasions. And I've really enjoyed the sort of energy in the way that she looks at life. Barb mainly works with organizations at a leadership level, helping them sort of step through life more comfortably, hopefully. And I'll let her explain a little bit more about that before we kick off properly. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here. And yeah, I mean, most of my work is in the arena of business, but it's inside companies, but also a lot of founders and entrepreneurs, as well as solopreneurs. You know, that journey is a personal one for me. I've been one this time around for about 12 plus years. And so I can relate to the idea of wanting to create a business that funds your life and yet not having huge team to do that. Yeah, but all the conversation is, as you've alluded to, Dave, it's the connection between our internal state and whatever we're up to in our work in the world. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That's lovely. I was interested, given the work that you've been doing and going into organizations, some of which are running at 100 miles an hour because that's just the way they operate. How that sort of played out in terms of helping them see things subtly differently that allows them the organization to run at 100 miles an hour, but them not necessarily experiencing that for themselves.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it because, I know that there's a cliche out there that I'll probably get a little wrong, but it's something like, do you have a lot to do? Go slower. It's the implication and the idea that an internal rushed, pressured, busy state actually has diminishing returns. And when we want to bring our best self, our best ideas and creativity to something, the more we're in a freer, calm down, open, neutral, internal state, the more responsive, creative, agile, the better thinking we have. So it's kind of counterintuitive, especially as you know, in the world of business, where I do think it has changed. It is changing, especially over the last few years. But this myth that one of the main components of business success is pressure, stress, grit, hard work, effort. And I think that, thankfully, from a variety of studies out there now, from people understanding more about the mind and how we function, they're realizing that those states are actually ones in which we're more compromised, not when we're more effective. And I know for me personally, that was a tough one for me, because by the time I came into this specific understanding and work, I had had a 25 plus year career working both as a consultant and as an internal executive. And to me, it looked like my success was attributed to the fact that I could override my body, the fact that I could handle stress and do it anyway, that I could push through my tiredness and, push through until we got somewhere. That all looked like a component of my success. And so I had to really investigate that and get curious and open. But I was willing to do that because there was something that just made sense in a really common, ordinary way, that overall we do better and a freer, more present mind. And, in sports, they've known this for years. How you show up to the game determines how you play the game. Yet in leadership and business, somehow that didn't get translated. And yet I began to see for myself that the more I slowed down inside and listened from a deeper intelligence within and responded from a more wise place inside of me versus a more reactive, go getter, make it happen kind of place, that I was experiencing higher quality decisions and thoughts, as well as a richer experience of my life and work.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I'm interested how that, are you finding most of the work with organizations you're doing is coming because someone's already on the inside has seen that and is interested in bringing that in? Or is there ever a time where there's a sort of scattergun approach of, right, we're just going to grab some of that and see what happens? Is it more of the former and less of the latter, or do you, and does that does it matter? Does it matter if you've got an internal voice that's already saying, yeah, come and have a bit of this, you might find it helpful?
Ultimately, no, it doesn't matter. And I would say the majority of my work is with people that haven't tapped into that yet. But when I speak to just the simplicity of where we're coming from inside ourselves affects whatever we're up to in that moment, that's not a hard sell, right? Yeah, I think everybody understands that. It's like, we're going on an interview, and if we're more nervous and anxious and overthinking, we don't perform as well as when we're more comfortable and present, right? So people understand that right away, and I think that they're interested for sure. Now, when there is someone inside that has seen something, that's always nice, right? Because it's not just the outside person coming in, it's someone they know and respect. So that's always a nice experience. However, it's not necessary at all. And I think more and more businesses are hearing and seeing the need, and the leaders themselves, for a healthier way to go about creating success, profit, and, a company that enhances the well-being of their employees versus just, giving them coping skills.
Yeah. Sort of, right, ring them out, but we need to we need to put something back in now, rather than seeing, wouldn't it be better if they were fully nourished and fully match fit all the time, despite the knocks of the game?
Exactly. And I have a lot of compassion for the leaders, that it's kind of a time of, oh, wait, the way we've always done it is no longer working, but they have no frame of reference because, like me, they think part of their success is tied to grit, overwork, people, kind of breaking themselves at some level, even a little bit, or bigger ways, for the cause of the company. But again, people hear a simple understanding and logic that doesn't have long-term sustained, abilities with it. So they get open and curious, and they go on first their own personal journey around this. Once they see it, once people begin to have their own experience of, oh, wow, I'm getting less done. I'm getting more done in less amount of time. Oh, I'm able to handle and I'm more agile in a freer, open, neutral state of mind. Oh, wow, I'm a better salesperson because my connection is more real and authentic. They start to make and connect these dots. And then all of a sudden, naturally, they begin to respect more, slowing down inside, listening to that deeper channel, that deeper intelligence within, letting that innate resilience kind of inform them. They get used to that. They cultivate their ability to do that versus the old models of push and stress and effort.
That's cool. Are you seeing organizations that you've worked with in the past now that are just naturally this way now, that see an understanding of clarity of mind and coming from that place of not effortless in that sense, but in terms of things just flow despite the turbulence of whatever they're going through. Are you seeing that there are organizations that are now just rocking that most of the time?
Absolutely. And I want to say, like, there's no perfection. Like, there's no aim to be comfortable all the time. There's no aim to be peaceful, blissed out, neutral all the time. That's not what we're really aiming for. What we're aiming for is to help people understand that their experience of life, their experience of their job, of their boss, of their client is being generated from inside of them. Their experience of stress and overwhelm is being generated inside of them. And when they see this and they understand it, they pull the right lever. So, like, life is messy and it's amazing and wonderful and hard and challenging. Business is all those things. Relationships are all those things. But when we understand where to go, when we need to find our stability, that we go within, that regardless of circumstance, each of us has within us the calm center, at center point in all of that, that we can find our okayness even when life is crazy, that we get dysregulated all the time, but we can get regulated again by going in. So this helps people, give them what they need in the moment, in real time, in a meeting that gets difficult. They feel their reactivity. They know how to find their center of gravity and come back to the moment. In change, a client or the market right now pulls the rug out from under them. So how do they stay creative and not get disappointed or discouraged so much that they can't think creatively? All of that is possible when people understand where their innate resilience, creativity, and well-being resides. So what I will say is that I can give you a couple of examples of clients and organizations. One story that's coming up right now is there's a client I've worked with over a number of years, and prior to the pandemic, she had started to see that they were going through some changes in their business and they were losing clients. And understandably so, that was a concern. And when she started to see the relationship between a stirred up reactive mind versus a quieter, wiser place inside of her, she was able to consider that the way she framed it is, okay, when I look at the data of the financial sheets, I get worried and reactive. And what I think about doing is very different than when I listen to that quieter, more intelligent, deeper, natural intelligence within. And she said, it's funny, when I look at the data in the spreadsheets, I am afraid and I feel like it's all, moving to an end. She said, however, when I listen to that other place, I'm actually inspired. Mm-hmm. And now neither one of those, both of those meant she had to work hard. They had a lot to do. But because she was learning to tune in to that deeper feeling in her, that wiser, more intelligent place, she said, now I consider that data. So the spreadsheets aren't the only data I consider. I consider this deeper innate intelligence, one of them. So she started to get a feel for that. Well, over the pandemic, she's in a field that was, the hospitality industry, which was deeply impacted. And she said that she was getting ready to do what a lot of her competitors were doing, which was to furlough employees and do all that. But because she had cultivated her ability to listen, not just to the data outside of her, but to this, she started to hear, don't do it. Don't do it. No, it's a no. So she got creative. She didn't furlough anybody. And as a result of that, they were able to step into some new offerings, some new creative thinking, things that they hadn't even occurred to them before. Mm-hmm. They started to partner with their clients in a really meaningful way. But believe me, it wasn't all smooth. They had more investment, and what we thought was going to be a 2-month thing mm-hmm. turned into 2 years, right? So I share all that to say that it wasn't long, I think it was last year that she and I were having a conversation, and they'd had the best year that they'd had in the 15 plus years of their business. And they were already, initially really successful. Mm-hmm. So she attributes that completely to her ability to slow down inside, to listen to not just the data, but also to the data within. And her team, who have all been trained and embedded in this, also then, as you can imagine, were able to keep their spirits up during one of the roughest times in their business. Mm-hmm. We're able to bounce back, to get creative, to support each other. And again, this doesn't mean that there weren't bumps and times of fear and concern, but in general, because all of them know where to look for their resilience and creativity, they've weathered that storm, and now we're on to the next storm, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really cool. I'm guessing as well that they were able to see when each other were caught out by stuff, and rather than see that as being a problem, creating space to allow that person to weather that, knowing they would go through whatever little turmoil they were having in a more comfortable way. I've been sort of toying recently, over the last few years, but again, focused again at the moment with this idea that, everything that we feel is there to serve us, even the most painful of things. At times that's felt like a tricky concept, but it's sort of, it does make sense, because from those most painful moments, we tend to learn some really amazing things looking back at it. At the time, it's horrible. But actually we learn from that. There's potential that comes from that. And, a word that came up in the 3P UK conference this last weekend was this business of not only trusting that we are designed to thrive, but also surrendering to that fact. And that the discomfort that we might feel in any situation is just an invitation to say, you're just trying to overthink this at the moment. Remember, you've got this. And the realization and acceptance of that is the surrender into, okay, let's see what else is on offer here. What other information is there available to me that I can add to the mix of what I've already got in front, and see where that takes me. And it's not just me, it's everybody, and I think that's, just really, really, really fun and exciting to play with, because in that, is that true? What's that all about? There's an opportunity to learn and grow and see something deeper than I do right now.
Yeah, I love that. And I couldn't agree more. And, for me, over the last 3 years in particular, it has been through some of those personal pain moments that I've seen more of who I am in my deepest, right? That it is often, I think a great way to look at it is sometimes we try and manage ourselves in life so that, we're only in the good stuff, right? But to your point, if we can understand and not be afraid of any of our experience, we get good at the full range of our human experience, then we experience more aliveness. We step beyond our normal zones of comfort and discover new, fresh experiences of what's possible for us, because we're willing, with love, compassion, to allow what is to be there and move through us and not be afraid of it. And I often think it's like there was one point in my business where things had slowed down considerably. And I started to get into a lot of questioning about it and self-doubt, which I think is normal. But it was being willing to do what you're saying, to sit in the uncomfortableness, not analyze it, not go after it, but just allow it to be. That I saw what was under that. As that moved through me, I saw, what's what's opening up for me with this? And what was evolving and opening up for me was a deeper trust in myself and life. Now, that's a profound thing. Starting to have more trust in life and trust in myself has now been allowed me to step into things that before might have felt riskier. But it took being willing to slow down, to get uncomfortable with how things had slowed down. It took that worry, that fear, that concern, and not just brushing it over or trying to think myself out of it. It took just allowing what it was to show me something deeper.
Yeah. It's, it is interesting. Fear is a wonderful thing. It keeps us safe. Yeah. But it's only keeping us safe from the things that we aren't aware of.
Yeah.
It's just an invitation to look harder and go, is it okay? Yeah. It's not saying it isn't. It's just saying there may be something else here for you. Just be aware. That's all it is. That's all it ever is. As you were talking, it reminded me of being 18 or 19 or whatever old I was when I went to Australia and went whitewater rafting. And one of the things was, all right, we're all going to get out of the boat and you're going to swim into basically what they described as a washing machine. It was the base of a waterfall. And they said, don't fight it. Just do what you've been taught, which is hold on to your life vest, go as straight as you possibly can, and the water will just pop you out. But if you fight it, you'll probably find you end up staying in there and we'll have to come and get you. And I went, I'm up for that. And lots of people were petrified of it. And I was just a sort of ridiculously enthusiastic 18-year-old. And I thought, I'll give it a go. And yeah, it was exactly as described. It was like being in a washing machine. It wasn't particularly fun, but trusting in what they told me and in the sort of mechanics of how water moves. Not that I was thinking about that at the time. I popped out and I thought, yeah, let's do that again. That was fun. But I could quite easily see why some people were frightened and didn't do that. It made perfect sense. That was the thing that kept them safe in that moment. Now, they may have gone on to regret the fact they didn't do it or beat themselves up for being a coward or whatever that happens to be. That's where we get in our way. Mm. The fear itself that said, don't do that, was perfect for them.
Yeah.
Because they didn't trust it. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong in that. Okay. It's the after effect of the thinking that we put on top of that, the layers that we add on that are things that we take away from that experience and just, amplify that as, oh, I don't do that because of, and, whatever story we then make up to go with it.
Yeah, as you know, I've shared with you that I've been, since living here in Scotland, I've been doing cold water swimming and taking a few lessons. And it has become like a metaphor for me on all of life. And I was just similar to what you're saying. It's like learning to be okay, being uncomfortable, watching my mind do one thing, but knowing underneath I'm okay, I can handle it. But to your point about judging it, just yesterday, I was telling the woman I'm taking lessons from that I had been in Fife recently. And for 2 days, I didn't get in the water. It was like I was checking the scene. I was like, where are the rocks? Where's the wave? Where's the tide? And I was kind of puzzled because I'd been doing it and loving it, but I watched myself get really tentative. And I was kind of judging myself about it. And when I was telling her the story, I said, yeah, so finally I got in. And then when I got in, I was like, well, what was that all about? And she said to me, she said, Barb, sometimes the mind just needs a little more time. Like sometimes, don't judge yourself for that. Just sometimes certain things just take a little bit more time. And it was just one of those moments where I was like, that's right.
Have you been listening to me?
Yeah, exactly. Have you been in my head? And it was like, I realized, I'm like, yeah, to your point, I had kind of turned on myself a little bit, right? And like been giving myself a hard time, like I should be better than this. And it's subtle, yet we're doing that, I think, to ourselves often. rather than, I love what you said, like, no, wherever we're at is okay. There's no arrival. It's not superior to jump in immediately
No,
or
not at all.
do the raft or not. Some people would argue that you were the crazy one,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, completely. And I sort of was.
Yeah,
Slightly
yeah.
loopy 18-year-old. Yeah, and it's fun in that, that not for any sort of design reason, but we've ended up in a society that judges and compares in most arenas. You see that with the way we teach people at school and the fact that there are grades and therefore some are in theory better than others in that sense. There's benchmarks and all the rest of it. And as a result of that, we end up with this almost default setting of judging ourselves against other people and other situations, and I wish I could, and I can't believe I've never done, and all of that chatter that goes with it. But just thinking back to that business of everything about us is designed to help us thrive, then every experience that we've had to date has got us to this point, and at this point, all bets are off because we don't know what's happening in the next moment.
Yeah.
But I do know that the combination of all the things that have got me here to this point have kept me alive. So it's probably going to happen again. If I go into that with sort of as much openness and willingness to be curious and learn about what I'm doing as I possibly can. And that is true for everyone. Then it doesn't matter how much judgment there has been in the past, where we've held ourselves back against how other people are doing. It sort of becomes irrelevant. That's just how it was. And this is how it is now until I get caught again.
Yeah.
And I get caught in that cycle. And at some point I'll go, oh yeah, that doesn't make sense, does it? And move on again. And it's that, it's those little insights of, yeah, that was daft. Right. What next? We forget those sort of little, not speed bumps, but sort of rays of sunshine that pierce in a moment and show us the way and go, okay, yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all, does it? Okay, well, let's go over here instead and see what happens there. And then we get lost again in the exploration and forget that at some point that really wasn't our bag and we really wouldn't go anywhere near that because we were frightened of it or we'd never tried it or whatever it happened to be. We forget those little bits of, oh, wow, yeah, cool, off we go and see where the road takes us. And it's been great to hear how you've been seeing that in the business world. I love seeing it wherever it shows up. Cool. Sorry, you mentioned there was another example that you had.
Well, the one thing I just want to say in response to what you just said is, I think if we really knew who we were at our true self, our true nature, and what that means, and the implication that if we understand who we are in our true nature, like what we bring to everything we're doing. When I was trying to manage my development and my stress and my achievements and thought everything was on me, so it made sense that I tried to get my personality in order, tried to get my discipline in order, right? It was a very consuming job. But when I started to look in this direction of what you just were speaking to, it's like, oh no, each of us comes as part of the design with this inner reservoir of creativity, of resilience, of stability, of okayness, of bounce back, of, rising to the occasion, of creative problem solving. Like those are innate capacities, but I had never really stopped to consider them, appreciate them, or understand and really consider, well, if that's true, if our true nature consists of those, and that every single human being on earth is born with this. We have our human nature, which is, part of our conditioning, from family, from work, our learning, our education. We have all of that, but we also have this other part, which if people consider it and get curious about it and go on their own personal exploration with it, they will discover it. They will see it. They'll see all the ways that, like you said, they've risen to the occasion. They figured it out. They got over something. They bounced back. They grew because of a hardship. It opened a door to something new. They begin to see evidence of that. And when we see it and realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm not just coming to this job, this leadership, or this problem or relationship with my personality, my experience, my managing myself. I'm coming with the innate capacity to hear what's meant for me, to connect powerfully, to figure things out. And that, when we realize, oh, wait, I come with that too, we're more willing to put ourselves into, the unknown. We're more willing to take risk. We're more willing to go beyond the discomfort, because often what our heart desires is beyond the discomfort, right? Or resolution, connection, reestablishing, repairing, relationships are often right on the other side of that. But again, when we really know, oh, I have it within me to find my way, to find my courage, to find truth, that's not, I don't manufacture that. I don't have to manufacture it. The only thing we're doing is cultivating our relationship to it, our knowing of it, not a conceptual knowing, but the deep felt knowing.
Yeah.
And when I did my podcast, I did a episode, like the 100th episode. It was kind of one of those, what have I learned in 100 interviews kind of thing. And as you know, I spoke to leaders and business owners. Most of those interviews were people from all over the world that had been impacted by this work that you do and that I do. And you know what? The number one theme that showed up in those interviews was when they knew they were okay no matter what. That changed everything. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't a conceptual knowing, it was an insightful knowing. When they discovered they were okay no matter what that did for them was it allowed them to leave work at work so they could be more present to their loved ones and their family. It allowed them to sleep better, take care of them better, improve their health. It allowed them to trust in the innate wisdom and intelligence and creativity of the people around them and realize they didn't have to do it all by themselves. It allowed them to take more risk because they weren't overthinking or worried or trying to prevent, future what if scenarios. It allowed them to step more into the flow of their own creative thinking versus trying to, predict every outcome possible.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And there's an interesting thing in there around risk. It's not risk for risk's sake. It's risk being taken consciously. That you, okay, I don't know what's around the corner, but that's okay because there's a corner and there will be something, rather than, I don't know what to do, I'm just going to run at it, which is a different type of risk. And I love the fact that it was when people absolutely knew at their core that they were okay, because it doesn't matter on the content of why they start a conversation to try and understand about this. It doesn't matter where that's coming from. The single point of, not success, that's the wrong word, but of enablement, I suppose, is when people see that they are okay, no matter what has happened in the past and what will happen in the future. And it's almost being handed your superhero cape and underpants that you already had already. That's who we all are all the time. And it's extraordinary in the fact that most of us don't understand it and don't realize it. And it's hugely ordinary in the fact that every single one of us is blessed with it, whether we see it or not.
Yeah.
And that's what's so exciting, is that there are a huge number of people out there completely unaware, whether that's blissfully unaware or frightened and unaware, that they are okay, and that they always will be. There will be bumps in the road. There will be things that go wrong, but they'll be able to navigate that in that moment with the information that's available to them in that moment.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we have a mutual colleague and a friend of mine who has spoken at some of my events, and that insight, she was in the realtor and investment realty company and owned one of the biggest investment companies in Scotland. And she shares that it was the insight that she was okay no matter what, that she could handle it, that the team could handle it, that she attributes to helping her get out of a big potential mess in the 2007 crash. And it helped her stay open and creative. And sure enough, ideas came through that allowed her to turn things around in a huge way. And if you ask her about it, she'll tell you it's exactly because when she realized she was okay no matter what, she settled inside. Mm-hmm. And as she settled inside and got present, she was able to hear present wisdom. She was able to hear how to respond to what was happening now. And then later she had some other negotiations that took place that, again, she said, I was out of my depth. She said, I had never had to negotiate in this type of way. But again, the knowing that she could rest, she couldn't put her confidence and certainty in an outcome. Mm-hmm. None of us can.
Yeah.
She could put her confidence and her certainty in the knowing she'd be okay. And as a result of that, again, she entered those negotiations from a place of ease and presence and was able to hear mm-hmm. her own guidance inside of that versus the noise of, oh my God, what's going to happen?
Yeah. Rather than looking out for the tiger that's about to bite her.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Working out whether there are any tigers in the room to start off with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. I know you're in Scotland at the moment and passing through, but I don't know if there's anything that you want to share with the listeners that you're up to at the moment that they might be of interest in and where you're off to next.
Yeah, thank you. They can find information on barbrapatterson.com, but a couple of new things that are in the works. One is I'm creating a 4-month program with a colleague and friend where we're going to create a container for people to take a deep dive into some of the areas that we've been talking about, but really this idea of, do I know who I am fully? And if we know and can tap into and get rooted in this idea of this deeper nature, this true self, this innate capacity that we have to be creative, to rise to the occasion, that when we get deeply rooted in that, it allows us to reach beyond what we've done, to go beyond conditioning, to go beyond our past and really tap into new creativity, performance, to try new things. So we're creating a 4-month container for people to explore and dip in. And that's September. That begins in September. And I'm super excited about that. I'm also creating some, we're in the final editing processes of some online programs, which I'm excited. So they can find all of that at barbrapatterson.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been lovely as ever to catch up with you, and good luck with the rest of the cold water swimming.
Yeah, thank you. And it's been a pleasure hanging with you, Dave. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us today. If you've enjoyed the conversation, feel free to subscribe and join me and my new guest next time. If you're interested in the work I'm doing, or you think I can be of service to you or your organisation, please email dave@simplicityofmind.co.uk. Remember, see if you can find time to slow down and reflect. Those simple ideas might be worth listening to. Take care, and I hope you can join me in a couple of weeks.